Welcome back to the Coaching Life Podcast. My name is Pat Martin. I'm here with my good friend, coaching colleague, and buddy, Chris Stewart. Coach, how you doing today, man?
Doing pretty good. Pretty well. Doing well.
It's baseball season outside, isn't it?
Yeah, you know. It's really hard. It's really hard to complain about a day where it snowed and it's 32 degrees outside, wind chills below 30. When we've had 3 really good weeks of opportunity to practice baseball, and tomorrow's going to be it. I mean, you know, by the time people listen to this podcast, it'll be a beautiful day.
Yeah, Thursday's going to be even better.
Yep.
But you know, I cringe because with the weather that we've had in February and March, I feel like April might not be so good. But I guess we'll just hang on and see what happens.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm glad we have a lot of games on our schedule. I'll just say that.
Could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, because then if you get 2 or 3 of those canceled, then you end up looking at a week where you're playing 6.
Well, that's true.
6 games in 6 days, or you know, five games in 5 days, whatever. But hey,
yeah.
It's never different. It's the same every year. I mean, the same thing happens every year. Just be prepared for it.
Well, Coach, we talked about having a discussion today about some of the cringeworthy things we hear coming out of the stands. But, you know, I think kind of to flip it a little bit, when there's got to be some negatives to make those positives shine. And I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here, but I think something significantly awesome happened in one of your practices recently.
Yes. I'm glad you reminded me of this, because I wanted to. I texted you right on my way home and said, I got a story for you, for the podcast. Right. So
yeah.
Yes. Okay. Let me get back into this. So last week, we had to practice indoors on Friday and Saturday. I think it was cold and rainy. I think those were the 2 days we scheduled an indoor practice, and on Saturday's practice. So it had been a really good week. We had a really good week of preparation last week. Good practices. They weren't easy, and we had some tough. You know, good practices means that you've probably made a handful of mistakes. I probably got up in their crawl a little bit, and then they responded. They responded well, and that's, to me, you know, I mean, it wasn't like, oh, everything was perfect last week. I don't mean that when I say we had good practices. I mean, we got after it.
You didn't win the practice.
Yeah, we got after it. Right. We got after it and learned from failure and got better. And so we had to be inside on the last day of the week, the last practice of the week, which was Saturday. And we were, you know, so we have these stations lined up all over our gym. We got the cage that we just installed on the one side, and then you have the stage. Up on the stage, we have 2 different hitting stations there, and then a couple tees on the outside of the stage, and then we were doing some bunting or bullpens in the middle, and then we just rotate them around. So about 7 different stations, and we'd rotate them, you know, split them up, and rotate them around. And then after, you know, at the end of practice, I said, okay, here's what I want. I pulled 2 of our seniors aside, and I said, hey, I want you guys to go off privately and draft 2 even teams. We had 20 guys there, 2 even teams, and we're gonna play a little 3-inning game in the cage. And you know how you play a cage game, right? You can make whatever rules you want, but the way we decided to do it was everybody's going to get 3 pitches. We were hitting off the pitching machine as well. So we had the pitching machine in there. It was throwing, I had the radar gun on it. It was throwing about 76 from about, and it wasn't quite at 60 feet. It was a little shy, a couple feet shy of 60 feet. So, you know, they're seeing some pretty decent pitches coming out of that machine. I think. Yeah,
and it's not always easy to hit out of a pitching machine.
And that's why I like doing it, because it's not easy. Yep. It's hard. Yep. It's frustrating, and I think that you gotta battle through it. You gotta learn how to react. I think, because the rhythm and the timing portion of your swing it's just almost impossible to get it with a pitching machine. You could have a guy out there trying to, do a motion and everything, but inevitably your front foot's going to hit the ground probably a little sooner than you want it to. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like you've got to, you kind of have to, your hands have to react basically. So,
and still some competitive mentality to your hitters as well. Yep.
Yes. And that's really what we wanted to do. We wanted to have some fun. We wanted to compete a little bit. And so we were going to put two teams against each other. And our rules were everybody got 3 pitches off the pitching machine. Luck of the draw. Every now and then the pitching machine would throw one a little bit wonky because we're throwing real baseballs through it and everything, And I'm like, hey, too bad. It happened for both teams a couple times. And we marked off a section. You had to hit it so far down, obviously a fair ball. And if it hit the ground, anything that hit the ground, any ground ball was an out. But a run was if you were like halfway up on the net and so line drive. And then we also said, okay, if you hit it straight back to the L screen, we're going to give you 2 runs. And if you hit it, one that would be considered, a shot to center field, like high on the net in the back, we're gonna call that 3 runs. So nobody got the 3 runs, but we had several 2 runs in the air. Had to hit the L screen in the air. Couldn't hit the floor. Hits the floor, it's an out. So, so we get in there, inning 1. What's funny too is you looked at the 2 teams and we had a couple kids I think that were kind of assuming that one team was stacked over the other one because you could kind of hear them jawing with each other a little bit. It's like, oh, did you let him pick his own team or whatever? And what was funny is the team that they thought was not stacked ended up jumping in there and scoring like 8 runs in the first round. Between all 10 of them, and the team that they thought was stacked scored like 4, and so they were down already. So inning 2, inning 2 happens. By the time we get to inning 3, it was 15-8. So top of the inning team was up 15-8. The bottom of the inning team comes up, and this was Jace Bullington's team. So Jace is our catcher, all district player last year, senior, Yep. And Jace has been hurt. Jace broke his hand in basketball late in the season, and it was actually at the growth plate where his middle finger, that knuckle, goes into the hand. And he hasn't been able to bend that, and he actually just got cleared yesterday, but he'd still been practicing, doing what he can. Right. And so he's holding a bat like this. Can you see me on the video? The middle finger is out and he's and he's still numb. Like it's weird because he says sometimes he'll just drop things like that. It's like he's his finger, his hands are numb, things like that sometimes. And so it's kind of a strange thing. But anyway, he's been swinging it a little bit. And you could see going into that last half of that inning, he had that look on his face. And he's like, guys, we're scoring 8 runs or more. And he jumped in, and Jace had a couple at bats where he had a hit, and then I think he had one. I think he had 1 hit per both of his first 2 at bats. He jumped in there, and that son of a gun stroked 3 in a row. I mean, they would have been gappers on the baseball field. Just set the tone. So just cut it down to 4 immediately. Cut the lead down to 4, and then the next 3 guys. All 3 of them got at least 1 hit. And so now they're only down 1. Well, then the next 2 guys don't get any. Well, then the next guy ties it up, and we're tied up. All right. So let's see. That's 4th batter, 6, 7. So we got 2 more batters and 3 more batters left. The next 2 don't get any hits. So they're still tied going into the last batter. The kids got their rally caps on. The other team's like jawing, they're hooting and hollering all around. They're standing all around the cage having a heck of a time. Well, the last batter on Jace's team is Braylon Johnson. Braylon is 1 year cancer-free, battled Ewing sarcoma, I think it was Ewing, right? Ewing sarcoma. There's osteosarcoma and Ewing sarcoma. I don't know if it's the same thing or similar thing. Where it's he's had the bone in his leg. He's got a rod in his leg. The bone, and Braylon has been practicing with us and doing everything that he can do, even though he's technically not going to be able to play here because he can't run. He's not able to run yet. He also had a little setback where he was working his butt off in the weight room, and he had a stress fracture, and so
So even though he's been a year removed from cancer, he's that year hasn't exactly been easy on him either.
No, it hasn't. But man, I tell you what, he's a tough kid, and he's a heck of an inspiration to our team. And
Absolutely.
so Braylon gets in there.
Really.
Yeah. He gets in the cage, and he made contact once in the 3 innings. And also, I'll say this, during BP, as we did our BP rounds, because we went around 3 times before this, and he hit the ball pretty well. He hit the ball off the machine in those rounds, and so we knew he had a shot at it, right?
Yeah.
So he made contact. He made contact in a previous at bat, but I think his second bat he swung through all 3 of them, 3 strikes. In his last at bat, tie game, everybody's hollering, pressure's on, swings and misses. Next pitch, swings and misses. Next pitch. I'm standing there and I'm going, this is going to happen. And you know how you have that feeling? You just got that feeling.
Yeah.
And the next pitch, he connects with it absolutely perfectly. Line drive, no question, up into the side of the net. Fair ball, base hit, run, that team wins. They all go storming inside the cage, pick him up. And what was cool was the other team did as well. Yeah. It was a really, really cool moment. Just a really cool moment. Like I told the coaches afterwards, I said, if we had sat down and said, let's write a really cool story that's going to happen from this game, we couldn't have written that script any better.
Yeah.
I mean, the way it played out was absolutely perfect. I texted Braylon's mom and I said, hey, make sure Bray tells you about how practice ended today. And she said that he did. Said he was pretty cool about it. Like it was no big deal, but she could tell it was pretty special. And she asked him, she said, did you feel a lot of pressure? He said, oh yeah. He said, I felt the pressure for sure because I was the last opportunity. And I'm like, that's exactly what we wanted. That's what we wanted.
That's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. And, 2 really good examples from you there, Coach, of ways to, one, make practice fun.
Right.
And then 2, simulate that feeling of competition and, the feeling of, what a hitter feels during a game when they get up and they're facing a pitcher in a tight situation. So, we've talked about that before. It's something that I'd say one of the more difficult things to do as a coach is to simulate the feel of, an actual game in practice. And that's what we strive to do as much as we can. So
without a doubt,
really good stuff there. I think that's a golden nugget for coaches out there looking to spice up the practices a little bit with some really good stuff.
Speaking of
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, you bet. And speaking of that, Pat, what was something else that was kind of cool is we had planned to do a coaches / parents instructional clinic for our youth programs. So for the Chester and Tuppers Plains parents and coaches, that we invited them to come and watch the practice if they wanted to, and then as soon as practice was over, is when the clinic was going to go. We're going to do it for an hour after that. And so this was right at the tail end of practice. And so we'd already had a couple people who actually came and watched the practice. They were there for the whole practice. But a handful of others were already kind of rolling into the gym, and they got to see that last portion of practice, which was really, really a cool moment.
Oh, I see. I got what you're saying now. Yeah, I didn't realize that. So you actually built. You had crowd around you too. Wow, you went the extra mile there.
Yeah, I guess so. Sort of. I mean, unintentionally, maybe.
It's good stuff, Coach.
Yeah.
That's baseball.
It is.
And life.
It is. And you know what was so cool about that moment is Bray had all the time in the world to get himself ready in the box. He didn't feel rushed.
I was like, what? I was trying to find the virtue in what you're saying there. Yeah, what a travesty it would have been had you called strike 3.
Strike 3 on him. That tension, the moment where the kids were all like anticipating and waiting, right? We want to get rid of that. We want to cut that down. Let's hurry this up.
Yeah, well,
and let's completely ruin it by just calling strike three.
Yeah, well, there's a nerd somewhere that thinks that would be the right thing to do in that situation.
So we're back on the absurdity things, right? The way we ended last week's podcast with the time clock and all. It just keeps getting worse. Just get on Twitter. It just keeps getting worse. You're seeing more and more examples of stupidity at the end of innings with these kinds of calls.
Well, you sent it to me, and I had conversations with a couple people about it, but like the most recent instance was, it's so silly. Both the pitcher and the catcher, or the pitcher and the hitter, are both showing disgust and the umpire's decision.
Shaking
and
their head.
It puts the umpire in a bad spot. It's the rule.
We're not
blaming the umpires in this case, but
he has to look at that clock and call it. Yeah.
It's just ridiculous, and everyone thinks it is.
The one that I sent you today, he literally was in the box tapping the plate with his bat, but because his eyeballs were not on the pitcher, he got called for strike, which ended up being strike three, rung him up. And
which is silly because we know. I mean, once he steps in the box, the pitcher can deliver.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's I don't get that. Like to me, I don't get having a timer for the hitter, right? Like as long as the pitcher has a timer on him and he's got to throw the pitch by this certain time, throw the pitch. Don't give the hitter timeout. You know what I'm saying? Whether the hitter's in the box or not, throw the dang pitch.
Right.
Make him umpire. Get yourself ready. Pitcher, get ready. Throw the pitch. If he's looking, I know what people say. Like as soon as someone says, "Who cares if the hitter's looking? Throw the pitch." They say it's a safety issue.
Oh Lord.
That's the response that I've heard and have seen. It's a safety issue. He has to be engaged with the pitcher. Otherwise, if he's not, he could get hurt. If the pitch was errant.
I'm about fed up with liability protection. It's a safety issue. How many hitters?
That's the best answer that people can give, Pat. I
guess.
I don't know. I don't know what other answer they could possibly have there.
How many hitters in the last 120 years have been hit by a pitch when they weren't ready for it? I'd like to know
all of them.
That's true. Good point. Yeah.
Right. You're never ready to get hit.
Yeah. Right.
Jeez.
Shoot. Well, that like I was saying, and that's a little bit different of an instance, but I think we do have to have some of these gut-wrenching, vomit-inducing aspects of sports to remind us of.
I tell you what,
great moments.
I tell you what I would do if I were playing in the MLB. I'd say, you know what? Let's just scrap the MLB. Let's just do World Baseball Classic year round.
Yeah, boy.
Let's skip.
Yeah,
it.
when I
this
heard
is so much more exciting baseball than what they're about to play.
Yeah, when I heard that they were, playing, baseball by baseball rules, I got excited about it, and I was like, I'm gonna watch these games, and it is fun. Those games are fun to watch.
It's electric. And
they're fun too because I think that element of, I guess maybe this is the wrong way to go, but the element of they're all those games they're playing mean something.
Yeah, they're playing for more than just to win the championship for their team or their city. You're playing for your country now. I mean, it's almost like an Olympic feel to it. These stadiums have.
Are the MLB rules going to be intact during the playoffs?
The new ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question.
As far as you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of out of touch. I mean, I watch. I see what I can, and I honestly, I'll be quite honest with you. I really don't care to watch the MLB right now. I don't. It's got to get better. I mean, somebody has to say, "Oh, it's gotten better." Don't worry, they haven't done anything stupid. Because I don't have any desire to watch something that's going to make me mad.
Yeah, true.
I know it's going to make
you shake your head.
If I see somebody get rung up because of a time clock, it's going to make me mad. I don't like that. I just can't. I can't bring myself to that. It's stupid.
Yeah, I don't like that either. I don't like it either. Oh well.
And I know
I do think it'll change because there've been so many people complaining. Like, I don't know that I've seen an argument for it.
Here's the other. I guess I don't know if it's an argument or just sort of the rebuttal. The response is, well, everyone who played in. And I even heard one of the commentators last night on the Israel and Puerto Rico game say this, because most of the pitchers for some of these other countries are in like Class A ball. Last night there was a 19-year-old kid from Canada pitching against that vaunted
and I saw like a 16-year-old kid from somewhere.
Yeah. It's
he didn't
crazy.
look like a 16-year-old.
It just goes to remind you, like, okay, this kid's. Last year was throwing against 18-year-old kids in high school, and he's probably dominant, right? Gets drafted, he's in single A ball, and now he's throwing against Trout and Goldschmidt and all these guys, that whole lineup, and it's like, okay, it's men and boys now. I mean, it just reminds you just how good these professional athletes are. I mean, not just the professionals. The kid's a professional. From Class A to the MLB, to the show, it is a huge difference. Because then against Israel, for Puerto Rico, they brought in Edwin Diaz to throw. It would have been the 6th inning, the bottom of the top of the 7th, I think is what it was, because it ended up being a shortened game because of the mercy rule. But Diaz comes in and he's just pumping 100 miles an hour, 92 mile an hour sliders and things like that. And it looks so much different. Like, it looks like he's throwing against high school kids, out there. But yeah, but I think that's kind of fun though. I think it's just fun to watch. It wasn't that fun to watch Freddie Freeman play in first base for Canada last night while his team was already down 9 runs in the first inning, and there wasn't anything he could, like, he just keeps going out. He keeps going out and patting that pitcher on the shoulder and saying, "Hey, just keep doing your best." Because I mean, the only other pitcher they had to bring in was another guy from Class A ball. Adam
Wainwright pitched the other night for USA, and I was talking to my coaching staff last night. They said that he don't play MLB anymore.
Did he?
He retired.
Well, if he retired, it must have just been after this past season.
They were thinking 2 years ago. They didn't think he played last year.
No, he did. In fact, one of my favorite video clips that I watched last year was him preparing to get ready for a game. I think he and Yachty did retire together. Or Yachty retired and Wainwright, and that was a special game because it was Wainwright's last game. Remember that bullpen? It was like a 20-minute long video segment, and it was awesome. I sent it to my pitchers. I said, "Do you want to learn how to prepare for a game? Yeah, this is it." And so I did. I know that there was talk of him retiring. I knew Yachty was retiring, who's, by the way, coaching on the Puerto Rican team.
Yeah,
but I wasn't certain that Wainwright was retiring.
Yeah, that's what I heard. But I told
he still has some in the tank.
He's
good.
Threw well against Great Britain. I told him that he pitched, and they're like, "Really? He retired?" But maybe.
Well, heck yeah! I mean, there are other guys that play that retire World Baseball Classic that are retired or about to. I mean, you don't have to be. Obviously, you don't. Heck, when they did the starting lineups for the Czech Republic team, they asked them, "Tell us what position you play and what you do for a living." It was like, "My name is such and such, center field. I'm a school teacher. My name's such and such, left field, accountant." And they all this was not their main job. They were these were guys that were just playing it for the fun of it.
That's baseball right there.
Yeah, that's real baseball. I love that. I love it, and it's you watch the Latin American teams playing, those people do not sit down the entire game. Like you flip on the channel and you're like, this sounds like there's just this constant rumble of noise. It sounds like playoff baseball, doesn't it? It sounds like what the TV sounds like during Game 6 of the World Series. That's what it sounds like when you've got
As
Venezuela
long as
versus
they don't
Puerto
pull
Rico.
out the what are they called? The belugas or whatever they are.
Right. Oh, for during the soccer games. Oh my gosh. Yeah. None of that.
I can't remember what those are called. Well, so that there are those things that I guess I would say the administration of Major League Baseball decides to do that sometimes puts a shadow on the game of baseball. We've talked about it before. Major League Baseball can come and go. It's not going to get rid of the game of baseball.
Definitely
but we're going to talk today or in the next few minutes about some of the things that we hear from the stands that as coaches, as players, sometimes just make us cringe a little bit. Maybe, educate some people on some things that they say out there that maybe give them a reason why they shouldn't say.
Yeah. This can go a couple of different ways. It could be funny, and it could also hurt a little bit, right? It kind of prick you a little bit if depending on what it is. But yeah, like you said, there's sometimes just things that you hear that you just want to say, stop and think before you shout this, right? and it's not just baseball. We're not just talking about baseball stuff. It's just like across the board. There are, and what we're talking about too is a lot of we're talking about amateur, like high school and youth sports, right? For the most part, high school, mostly. Junior high sports, especially.
Well, you hear less of this the higher.
Yes, you do.
The higher up you go. There's probably a reason for that. But youth league. I'd say primarily youth league. Sometimes in high school. I know for me as a high school coach, I guess maybe the environment, maybe just the focus that the game requires. I don't hear a lot of what's going on in the stands. We had a guy get ejected last year and didn't really impact the flow of the game at all. And just afterwards, it was a conversation. What happened there? Not really paying attention or anything like that. But so what do you got? What's your
just throw out an example.
Yeah,
something like that. Because I'm with you. I don't always hear. I don't hear it much while I'm coaching, but I do hear it. Like if you attend a basketball game or attend another game somewhere else.
Right.
Like if I go watch one of your games, I'll hear this stuff, and you go watch one of mine, you'll hear it. So how about this one? Call it both ways. This goes across the board. Right. This could be football, basketball, baseball. It could be anything, any number of things. Right. Call it both ways. Who are we talking to there? The ref, the ump, the officials. Call it both ways. Now let's stop and think for a minute, folks. Do we really?
Careful, because there's something happened there recently that might put this in your argument here in jeopardy. But go ahead.
Sure, but even still, I mean, do we really, really, truly, honestly, in our heart of hearts, believe that across the board? I'm not talking about that one, because everyone thinks of the exception. And I'm sure that, of course, every game's the exception, right, on this. But I mean, across the board, are officials truly like keeping track of, okay, I called this, so I better call this. I called this for that against that team, so I better call that. And do we want them keeping track of that, right?
Right.
Like their goal and their mission is to call the game fairly. So let's talk about a basketball game, for example. If one team truly is committing more fouls than the other team, then your team that's committing more fouls is going to have 9 fouls on the board while the other team has 2. And sometimes we look up there and we say 9-2, 9-2, right? And I've caught myself doing it before. You're right, thinking that and saying that. But I wonder, like, do we want those guys going, ooh, yeah, we better even this out? Because then they're looking for something to call.
Right. Yeah, I think, generally, I don't even know if that's the right word. I don't know any officials that's ever intentionally tried to, skew the game one way or another. they may have felt that way at the time, and I might have felt like I needed to say something to, maybe not necessarily gamemanship, but one, to show my players that I had their back, or two, because sometimes if you don't say anything, then the game continues to go in the direction that's not benefiting you. But I think, Coach, one of the
gamesmanship is a good word. You do have the ability, I think, by things that you say to put a thought. I mean, people are human, and so
sure.
If you say, "Hey, man, we sure would like to have that one also," right?
But you know what? The true is opposite too. Like you can get by saying too much or saying the wrong thing, you can get an official against you as well. Because just calling youth league games, I know how I feel when a coach really gets on to you or something like that. So I get that too. It
doesn't make you want to call more things in their favor, does it?
Sure. No. But I think this is a coaching thing as well. I think as a player, as a team, you should come into the game knowing that there's going to be calls that go against you. That's part of the challenge of that's part of the majesty of sports, is that those officials are just as perfect as we are as coaches and players, and they're gonna make incorrect calls. So you just got to deal with it. You just got to deal with it. And I think sometimes from a crowd perspective and even a coaching perspective, if you're really hard on an official, you're saying things like that, it takes the focus of the players off the game, off the task at hand, and puts that focus on the officials.
And that's where we don't
makes them the worst team.
Yeah, it does.
Right, absolutely,
for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. I guess to counter that, it's kind of the same ballpark. I've heard, well, these officials must be from X, home location, which has become even more silly now because a lot of places use a signer. So, the athletic directors, the schools aren't actually picking their officials; they're allowing the assigners to do it for them. So, there's less of a chance of that happening. But 99% of the time, an official is doing the best job that they can. I would say that's probably true for coaching and players as well.
When you go, especially we live in a rural area, and when you go, like, these guys aren't getting paid very much. And so why would you expect them for $125, to drive 60 miles, to go to a game when they could do a game that's 5 miles away? And so I don't care. That guy's from here. I mean, so, cut him some slack, right? It's if we want if we want a guy that lives, on the east side to go officiate all of his games on the west side, then he's probably not going to do as many games because it takes longer to get there. You got these people have to work. That it's just it makes sense. Him more. Yeah.
And I'm definitely guilty of this, but ultimately it comes down to the bottom line of we do have some umpiring or official issues. I would say all around. People don't want to do it as much anymore,
right?
And we're on that downward trend, so we need to do something to try to flip it back the other way. Complaining about things like that probably isn't the way to go. But how about this one? How about
you got one?
Keep your eye on the ball.
Keep your eye on the ball, Johnny.
Have you seen the video where the kid, the 4-year-old's hitting off the tee, and his dad says, "Okay, keep your eye on the ball," and he leans in and sticks his eyeball right on the softball.
That's a good one.
I think that that's.
Well, you know what they're saying there, right?
I do, but it's a buzz phrase, right?
It is, yeah. It is,
and the question comes down is how much have they been prepared to assess and apply that buzz phrase that's being shouted at him, keep your eye on the ball. What does that really mean to a kid when he or she is up to plate and, trying to hit a baseball? Well, one, obviously we're trying to tell them, watch the ball.
Right. The most important,
what do we think?
The most important asset you have as a hitter is your eyesight. Right.
Very seldom do I see a pitcher go up or a hitter go up and turn their back to the pitcher, or close their eyes and try to hit.
It's quite obvious. That's what he's going to try to do, is watch the ball. Yeah.
Right. It's a pretty obvious statement. Of course they're going to try to watch the ball, but what's it mean? Was swinging good pitches, swinging at the pitch that you want to hit, things like that. So anytime I hear keep your eye on the ball, I wouldn't say it's cringeworthy, but I kind of chuckle.
Sure.
Like, say, okay.
That's one of those baseball phrases. Yeah. The baseball park phrase. Yeah.
I wonder what the hitter is thinking right now after hearing that.
I'll tell you, when I say keep your eyes on the ball quite a bit to base runners. Because I don't want them, if they're off the base, I do not want your eyes anywhere else except where the baseball is.
Yeah, and they will. Call it naturally. They do look other places.
They do.
And
they'll look back to the bag as they're getting their lead. They'll look back to the bag. They'll hear, if they're out at second base, they will hear shortstop and second base shuffling their feet behind them, and they'll look around to see where they're at. And I just always remind them, listen, that base isn't going anywhere. It's going to stay right. It's going to stay. It's in a plug. It's in the ground. It's going to stay right there. You don't need to look at the base. The ball, however, can get you out.
Yep. Your eyes on the guy with the ball, or the
guy with the ball,
the player with the ball is the only one that can make a play on you at the moment.
Yeah. So there's a time to say it, right? So let's give them a better time to say it. Hey, base runners, keep your eyes on the ball. Yes, sir. I'll accept that help anytime anybody wants to yell it from the stands.
Well, I think there are some times to say some of these things.
Sure.
I've got another one we can talk about. You want to talk about it real quick?
Yeah.
And then we'll come back to you.
Oh no. Yeah, we can ping pong them.
This is a bad one. Just throw strikes.
Yeah. That is a bad one. That's a lot worse than keep your eye on the ball. I don't care if people say keep your eye on the ball. I get it. But don't throw strikes, or don't throw strikes. Just throw strikes. That's cringeworthy.
But let me say this. Okay, so obviously the pitcher's out there not trying to throw balls. We all get that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when we hear just throw strikes, it's actually out of frustration.
Right.
Or out of panic.
It means you're struggling to throw strikes. And so now that pitcher is thinking about that fact even more because you said, just throw strikes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here's my counter argument.
Okay.
Sometimes just throw strikes could mean you're in total control of this game.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Yeah.
You throw it, they're not going to hit you.
Yeah.
Just throw strikes. Sometimes it's a calm down, you're fine, just trust yourself.
You don't have to nibble. You can just you could literally groove it and they're not going to touch it. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Now, the trick in that is knowing that when you say it, the person receiving the message knows what you're saying.
They understand, what you mean and what you're saying.
But I would say, 75% of the time or more, when you hear from the crowd just throw strikes, or a coach says just throw strikes, it's out of frustration, it's out of panic. It's well, come on, all you got to do is throw strike. So it's not helpful. So it's that is a cringeworthy statement. A lot of the times you hear is wish they wouldn't have said that, because a lot of times it's going to hurt the pitcher more than it helps them.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful about some of these things.
Yeah, you do. Have you ever heard anybody say this? Hey, make an adjustment.
Make an adjustment.
Okay.
Well, that's vague, isn't it? Yeah, I guess I have said that.
And maybe I probably have too as well. But I try to stop myself when I say things that are vague like that, and then say to myself, specifically how. Right?
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't like, one of the things I have on my list to talk about today is basically it's vague. Any type of mechanical advice.
Yes.
You got to be real careful giving mechanical advice in the heat of the game. That's not when you want to do that. That's a good time to pull out the pen and paper and make a practice note.
For later.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If it's something very, very simple, I could see it. Very, very simple.
Well, if it's something that they could literally change on the spot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and there aren't very many things like that. But if it is something simple that could be easily changed on the spot, then yeah, do that. Otherwise,
and
just
that they
be their
don't
big
have
cheerleader.
to think about too much. You know what I mean? It limits thought. It limits focus, because we want them to focus on competing, on hitting the ball, on throwing the ball, on fielding the ball. If it's I don't know, lift your hands a little bit or something like that. Something pre-launch, something that, like I said, that they understand, that they've done in the cage, they've done during practice, and they know, okay, I know what I need to do. And
a reminder of something they already know how to do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when I hear someone make an adjustment, my first thought of a player, just like you said, is what? How?
Yeah. What kind of adjustment? Right? Like if I want a pitcher to, if I feel like a pitcher, maybe like he's thrown 3 or 4 balls in a row and they've all missed in the same place. That's usually when you hear something like that. Make an adjustment out there, right, on the mound. Well, what would that adjustment be exactly? Like, what are you seeing that he could change to throw a better pitch, right? I mean, if it's as simple as, hey, try the other side of the rubber. If that's what the adjustment is, then tell him that. Hey, move over to the right side of the rubber. Let's give that a shot.
Yep, just to try something different.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think, again, it's another one of those things that would be said maybe out of frustration, maybe out of panic. I would be more inclined just to say, step off, take a breath, pause. Right.
Yeah.
Just gather yourself, and hope that naturally they find that adjustment that they need. Because obviously, they can succeed in the situation that they're, whatever mechanical process they're using or anything like that. They can make it work.
Right.
But our job as a coach is to help them do that, not necessarily make it more difficult. So, to shout out something like make an adjustment. Well, okay. I want my guys, I want them to think as least as possible when they're, from a mechanical perspective, when they're out there competing. I don't want them to have to be thinking, I need to do this, I need to do that. So that's
and that's the same for every sport. Like, how about a guy at the free throw line who's typically a decent free throw shooter, 70% free throw shooter, but they missed 3 in a row, and you say, hey, make an adjustment.
Right.
Okay, great. Like, should I bank this one in? Like, what should I try to do differently? Right. I would rather hear, if you're missing short, if you miss short all 3 times, maybe say, hey, shoot it higher. Or, I don't know what the basketball adjustment would be, but
follow through.
Yeah.
Get above the rim.
Yeah. Just don't say make an adjustment, because that doesn't help.
Right.
I don't think that helps.
Or just don't say, hey, make a free throw.
Yeah. Hey, make this one. Right. Just make your free throws.
We didn't make our free throws, fellas. Good one. How about this one, Coach? Hit your cutoff, man.
Okay. Do we want that or not? I'd say yes and no.
Not always.
Not always.
Right? Not always.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that youth baseball give us is this this obsessive desire for our outfielders to always throw the ball to a cutoff.
To a cutoff man. Yeah.
So they become the primary target as opposed to the name of their role. Cutoff,
or relay. Yeah.
So
they're a conduit to get to another place, right? That they're a conduit.
Sure.
They're not the main primary target. But sometimes we're going to use them to go to where we need to go.
Right.
This would be a great opportunity to explain the purpose for a cutoff man.
Yeah, sure.
So
give some scenarios there. Say a ball's hit to right field, ground ball to right field. The runner's runs a hard 90, because we always run hard 90s, and is heading towards second base as if he's going to take the bag, and he is. The right fielder is not going to want to throw to the cutoff
to
man.
a cutoff man.
Yeah. Want to throw straight to the bag.
Yeah.
In the same instance, let's say, there's a runner on second and there's a ground ball hit the left field, and that runner on second's very fast. So, typically the third baseman would be the cutoff in that situation. Some coaches do it different. Some, depending on the situation, you might do it different. But say the third base is the cutoff home in that case.
For that. Yeah. As long as it didn't take the third baseman off the line. Like if it's a play that the third baseman maybe dove in the hole for and he can't get back to his cutoff position, because the cutoff position is not going to be that deep.
Right.
For a base hit to left, it's going to be back near the pitcher's mound, closer to the catcher, right? And
we had first base do all of our cuts last year.
I've done that before. For
a purpose.
Yeah.
But
you also had some good first basemen that understood that part of the game really well too. And
we did.
Because it's I'll be honest with you. What's one of the things that I'm reminding players of more than any on plays at the plate? Get in the cutoff, get in your cutoff position, get in your cut. Like I want first baseman that doesn't have. You don't have to remind them of that. You had some good ones there last year. We didn't have to do that much.
We did.
And that's why we want it. That's why we rep it and rep it and rep it and rep it and rep it. It's because we want. It's our job as coaches to get them to that place. If they're not there, then it's our job to get them there. And so hopefully I'll do a better job of that this year.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, well, hopefully I do too. That's always the goal, right?
Right.
But yeah, so runner on second base, we teach we're looking, obviously our eyes are on that lead runner, and on a ground ball, we're looking 2 bases ahead. So that guy's trying to score. So we're throwing home. That third baseman goes into a cutoff position with, like you said, which is right around pitcher's mound, 60 foot, 50 to 70 feet away from home plate. And the catcher notices that, this guy on second's going to score. We don't have a shot at him.
Yeah.
But the guy that hit the ball is going to try to stretch it into a double, advance on the throw. So now we're yelling, cut 2. Yeah. And the third baseman takes the initiative to say, okay, and grabs that ball away from the catcher. Not necessarily that the left fielder's throwing to the cut. He was throwing home, but he's throwing through the cut. Right. So that cut man, that third baseman, can field that cut and then throw it to second base for an out.
Yeah.
We're not just giving that. So, there's all kinds of scenarios.
It's like it has a double. There's a double meaning to hitting your cutoff, right? Because you're not throwing to the cutoff man, but you are throwing to the cutoff man because you're throwing through the cutoff man. So you're throwing it toward the base, and it's going to be the cutoff man and the cutoff man's responsibility to get in line with the base, and you shouldn't need a ton of direction. Like, you should have a pretty good sense of what a straight line is between the ball and the base. But if you need some direction, then the guy at the base might be saying, hey, left 2, right 2, right? But in terms of depth as a cutoff man, you got to know what that depth is. And so what I like to tell guys from the outfield is, you're throwing to the base low and hard so that it arrives at the base on a long hop.
Yeah, See, you're missing short.
I think if they try to throw it there in the air, that's when you start getting the loopy, the little too much air under it, and therefore it can't be cut off. And I think that's where you get people shouting, hit your cutoff, right? Because they threw it over the cutoff man's head. And so to that, I agree. Yeah,
me too.
That throw needs to be lower, right? So that it can be cut off if it needs to be cut off. But you're not throwing
and not only that
man.
But
you're throwing through that man.
Secondary, I would almost say this is actually a primary. The secondary was the scenario I gave. A primary role of a cutoff man is to get an errant throw. So if the throw is 5 to 6 feet off the base that it's going to, we can cut it and then go on and send it to that base. Go ahead
and relay it then. Yeah, you relay it to the base where you want to go to. Yeah, that's a great point. Because you're telling your guy that's receiving that throw at the base, you know, the two things you're looking for is, one, an errant throw. If it's offline, you immediately start saying, "Hey, cut three." You know, if you're at third base, if it's a throw that is so weak that it's just going to roll to you, that it would actually be faster to cut it and relay it, then that's your second. You know, that's your second read. Otherwise, let it go. Yeah, I mean So yeah, I mean, I like the fact that in youth ball we learn about the cutoff man and the importance of having the cutoff man. I think one of the things that happens in youth ball is obviously arms aren't as good. And so you got guys in the outfield, and so what you learn. So those formative years when you learn how to be a cutoff man, what do you end up doing? I remember this as a kid, as a shortstop. Ball hit to center field, and I'm the cutoff man.
Half, right?
I'm cutoff man to third, right? I'm running out into the outfield grass with my hands up to be the cutoff man. And so what happens is when we start repping this in high school, and you hit a ball to center field and your shortstop goes running into the outfield grass, you're like, no, back up. And because that, we don't want him to just throw it to you. We want him to throw it through you. So he's going to need to get a little bit of air under it to throw it there on a long hop. And also we don't want you that far out because one of your purposes is to control the running game. And so if there are two runners on base, we may not be, like you said, your scenario, we may not be able to get the lead runner, but we don't want to allow that the furthest back runner to advance further than necessary. And so that's your role. That's you cut it off to keep that runner where he needs to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot to the game, isn't there? You ever we've talked about this one before. I went over this in our clinic the other day. Spent a little bit of time talking about using two hands.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
I always hear that. Use two hands. No matter what.
No matter what.
Used.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
or even like, I think sometimes people will get it like, okay, yeah, you can't use two hands when you got to stretch out to your right. Like if the ball's away from your body, it's really tough to use two hands.
Right.
And so I think most people would be like, yeah, we get that. But if it's right to you, if it's out in front of your chest, always use two hands.
Yeah.
And I still say no. Don't do that.
Yeah. Why?
Okay. First, I'll say, when do I want a player to use two hands?
Yeah.
When you have to make a quick transfer. Yeah. So even ground balls, to be honest, right? Not every ground ball you need to get it out as quick as possible.
No.
Right? Not every fly ball that you're camped underneath do you need to get it out as quick as possible. And I would even say that on those plays, I still don't necessarily want my outfielder putting two hands up above his head. I want that bare hand close so that you can, but you're gonna step through that ball and you're gonna have time to transition out of your glove to make a good athletic throw. And so let's free those eyeballs up a little bit. Let's not get our arms in front of our eyes to try to catch the baseball. And so like I'm in my mind, I'm thinking really turn and double play, is one of the only times I want to see that routine ground ball right to you. Obviously you want that bare hand on top. So I guess there you're using two hands as well. But other than those two scenarios, I just don't see any benefit of trying to use two hands.
Yeah, I think that is derived from, when a young fielder is trying to catch a ball, you'll see a lot of times them reaching away from their body. I would much rather say, get under the baseball, center the baseball. But if you play, you would see that the unnatural feeling that it is to try to reach up above your head with two hands and to catch a baseball, especially if it's on, if for whatever reason you don't catch that ball centered or to the and I would say it's actually to your throwing side of your body. It's very hard to catch a ball to your glove side with two hands, or at least it's uncomfortable to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like reaching over to the side, that's just it's an uncomfortable feeling to me. So why do people say it? Other than I think there's two reasons. I think one is because it is a way that coaches feel like tells their players to center themselves under the ball, as opposed to saying center yourself under the ball, right? So that in order to catch it with two hands, you have to center the ball. And then the other reason is it's to secure the baseball after a catch, right? Which is, again, typically that's a deficiency of, weak hands, younger kids, things like that.
Yeah.
Very rarely does a high schooler need to secure the baseball to keep it from popping out of his glove. And if he does, it's more of a focus issue than a mechanical issue.
And it might be an equipment issue.
Or an equipment issue.
Maybe you need a better glove, or an older glove, a glove that doesn't that is broken in a little bit so that you can actually squeeze the ball a little bit, right? But even still, I can't think of a play where catching a ball that's in the air with two hands even looks athletic.
Right.
Right. I mean, it just doesn't.
It looks clunky.
It looks like you're not confident. You can't. You're not confident to catch the ball. It feels clunky. Yeah.
It feels clunky.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of the reasons why, when you start throwing with little kids and they start catching with two hands, one of the things you have a hard time with, like 8U coaches and 10U coaches, is the kid that wants to catch everything with his palm up, right? And so if you want to catch everything with your palm up and you have a ball that's up close to your face and it's going to skip off your palm, it's going to hit you in the face. And so what do? Put two hands up there. So when you start catching with two hands, now you start catching everything with your glove side, your glove hand palm up, and you're trapping everything in that two hands. So you're doing two things wrong. One, you're catching with two hands, but the bigger issue is you're catching everything with your palm up, right?
Yeah.
The only thing you want with your palm up is a ball that's on the ground. Otherwise, bend your knees and get your thumb under it, right? And catchers, you don't want to ever catch a ball, receive a ball with your palm up, ever, right? If you need to put your palm up, that means you need to get your knees on the ground to block it.
You're blocking
it should be hitting your chest, right? Everything that's caught as a catcher, your thumb should be under it. And so I just, unless, I don't know, unless you're diving, if you got a terrible pitcher and you have to dive out and, catch to your left and catch a ball,
your fingers aren't down there though. They're They're to the side.
Yeah. But I just don't, I think we would do, well, here, we got to get rid of this too, Pat. I think sometimes you hear people say, "Oh, yeah, he doesn't ever use two hands because he likes to hot dog it." People equate catching a ball with one hand with being a hot dog, and I don't know where we got that because one, if I'd rather have a whole team of hot dogs if they're that good, right? If they're that good with their glove hand. Right? Wouldn't you?
I think I know where we got it. I think, there was a long time that the idea of not, don't teach kids the way Major League Baseball players play. And it was, from a perspective of ignorance. I don't mean that in a way of, insulting anyone.
You're not getting paid $1 million. When you get paid $1 million, you can catch with one hand too.
Right. But here's an example. I loved, I loved a lot of the Reds when I was in Little League, but this is a great example. Eric Davis. Remember how Eric Davis, preload, how he would hold a bat? Yeah.
Well, and the way he caught a fly ball too. One hand, and he'd snap that glove down, right?
Yeah. But he would preload. Eric Davis would be wiggling that bat down under his,
and his hands would be right in front of his chest.
Yeah,
and just wiggling.
So I think a lot of people in those days say, "Well, you don't want to hit like that because he's a Major League Baseball player. He's extremely strong. He's extremely fast, and he has time to get his hands from the middle of his body, wiggling that back to up in the ready position, quote unquote." But the truth is that doesn't take speed or strength at all. It just takes timing. And Eric Davis. Eric Davis looked the same then, hitting from his load that every other Major League hitter did at the time. So but it was easier to set to without video, without the technology that we have now. We didn't know that, so it was easier to say, don't do it like the major leaguers, do it like this. And I think that, that was an excuse when a major leaguer would go out and make a one-handed catch.
Yeah.
Coaches, young coaches stuck in their ways would tell their players not to do that by saying that those players are hot dogs.
Right. So, well, we've also gone through this transition of generations where, I told this to our parents and coaches clinic last weekend. I said, our grandpas and great grandpas, to be quite honest, their gloves were not built the same as gloves today.
That's true.
And so they, you basically took a couch pillow and taped it to your hand, strapped it to your hand, and tried to catch a baseball with a couch pillow, basically, right?
That's a good point.
And so
that's a good point.
So when you look at these old videos of these guys reaching up and out and catching with two hands, it was because they had to. They had to. The ball would not stick in that kind of an old glove. And so so as the game is taught, it's then important to teach to catch with two hands because of that, just simply because of the equipment wasn't good enough to be able to squeeze the ball. We don't have that problem anymore. And so I think we just need to get rid of that whole mindset of, I told our youth folks, I said, look, you will do one of the greatest services you could do for kids is to force them to catch with only their glove from the time they first start throwing the baseball. Tell them to put their hand behind their back and just get good with the glove. Get really comfortable using the glove, because that's what we need them to get comfortable with. Because the more comfortable they get with their glove, the easier it's going to be to catch the baseball, the more natural it's going to be to catch the baseball. And then if they need to use two hands for something like turning a double play, making a quick transfer, then it becomes an easier thing to teach.
Yeah,
but it's harder to teach it the other way around, to constantly be telling them use two hands, and then, well, that kid wants to catch everything with his palm up. Now I got to fix that. Now he doesn't know how to catch with his glove, so he looks awkward with the glove, and he's catching throws from the catcher and trying to put a tag down with two hands. And now he's getting spiked in his throwing wrist. Things, just all sorts of problems, right? So yeah, that's a big one. We spend too much time on that, and we shouldn't, because that's not in my mind. That's a no-brainer. We shouldn't spend much time on that. But I agree. But it's a big one. Yeah.
You hear my?
Is that a dog?
Well,
I see something. Yeah. I'm looking on the video screen here, and there's something crawling. There's something furry crawling all over you. Look at that little guy. How old is that? A boy or girl?
It's a girl.
How old is she?
She is, I think, around.
She's chewing
4 months, maybe 3 months.
Oh yeah,
months.
Chewing everything.
Yeah, she definitely chews everything. You
love her, don't you?
I don't mind her.
Wow, that's big for you.
It is. It is.
Well, shoot. Do we have a whole list of these? Because we've been talking for a while.
Yeah.
Do you have any others that you wanted to share with our audience?
Well, I said any type of mechanical advice. Yeah. One from basketball is over the back.
Oh boy, shouting over the back. Yeah,
there isn't.
There's no such.
But
call.
You know what's even more cringeworthy to me sometimes? When you have that other person saying, "There is no such thing as over the back."
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Like, come on.
You know what we mean, right? Like, what do you?
Right.
Like, are you supposed to say every time he had position, he had inside position? My guy had inside position. It's just easier to say he's over his back.
Yeah.
Sometimes that there's no such thing as over the back, but that's the easiest thing to say, right? Is that
right?
What you're saying?
It just comes out.
Yeah.
As, aside from push or something like that.
Yeah. Well, what's bizarre, I think, about basketball is that there's only 5 total fouls or something, or there aren't very many actual fouls.
Oh, you mean types of fouls?
Yeah. Like there's no such thing as a reach in. There's no reach, right?
No.
There's no over the back. That doesn't exist as a call. right?
No, the reach would either be a push or a block.
And there's not really a charge either, is there? Is it just called player control? A player control foul?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so that could be offensively or defensively. Well, mostly that's offensively, because defensively it would be a block, right? A blocking foul means that you've hit somebody with your body. Is that right?
Impeded them.
And then,
would that be?
Yeah.
Impeded their movement.
Illegally. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you illegally.
You made a movement to impede their movement.
What? So is this an official basketball foul? Like, is this word an official foul? Because I hear this hit. Is hit an official foul?
I hear officials saying that.
Yeah, like they'll take their fist and hit it on their wrist and say hit. It's like, okay, is that like a hack? Are you saying that instead of like he got hacked, or like?
We'd have to reach out to our official expert Nathan Carroll to get the.
I think Nathan had some big games toward the end of the season, didn't he?
You know, like what
girls
he did?
Basketball regional or something like that.
He was sending me some pictures of places he was going to. I can't remember offhand if he had any.
Because I saw he was with Jason Wright and Jeremy Ward. The three of those guys worked a game together. It was a tournament game.
I didn't know Coach Wright officiated.
Yeah, Jason's been doing it for I don't know how many years now.
I'll be darned. Yep. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Good for him.
Yeah, I think if I remember right, I think I remember him saying that he started doing it for the exercise. It was a long time ago, or maybe he just enjoys it. But he said he does enjoy it.
He's got to be borderline crazy to do that. I'm going to tell him that next time I see him.
Well, you'll see him here soon.
That's true. We're heading to Oak Hill. We're planning to head to Oak Hill Saturday for a scrimmage. I don't know. It looks like rain Friday night. So
I picked up another scrimmage for Monday.
Yeah,
we're going to Fisher Catholic. Going to go play against my brother in a scrimmage game. So you're going to get to see Oak Hill ahead of time. I'm going to get to see Fisher Catholic ahead of time. And then
that's true.
And then our four teams are going to play a round robin,
right,
later in the season.
So who gets the info between Fisher Catholic and Oak Hill, because they're going to be playing?
Those two teams are going to be playing each other, right?
I'll have to give. I
have to give Jason a call
Coach
after
Stewart,
on Sunday.
You have to give Coach Wright a call.
Hey, Jason, tell me a little bit about Pat's team. I got the info on Fisher for you. I can't throw my brother under the bus, though, can I? Can't do that.
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know. I guess who do you want to play in the?
Honestly, like, what are you actually gaining from knowing who their best hitter is and knowing what? Oh, yeah, this guy's got a nice curveball. We still got to hit it. If they bring this pitcher in, watch out because he throws gas. Okay, cool. Like, how's that really helping me?
Something you do out of necessity or just to cover the bases, you know.
But true scouting is hard to do in high school unless you can see a team over and over and over again, and you find some tendencies in their pitching staff, you know, some patterns, things like that, or some tendencies with their hitters. But it's really, really hard to learn to adjust it.
It is, and I went to the sectional championship last year thinking that Dina was going to bunt a lot, and I don't think they bunted.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Of course, they were facing Ethan Stewart, who does, he throws a hard ball, so that makes it a little bit more
Now, I will say this. Yeah, we played a team that, in our sectional, that whenever you got runners on first and third, they were really good at pickoff moves. They loved to run the double pickoff move, the fake to third, back to first. And so it was one of those things that, we learned beforehand. It was one of those things that we were like, hey, guys, be ready for this, right? And it was helpful because, like clockwork, every time there was a runner on first and third, a pitcher did it at least once. So it was a point of emphasis for him.
Good stuff,
Yep. Well, fun day for us here. Back at it.
I think wrapping it up, just you know that be aware of what you're saying as coaches, as fans.
We're not meant to make fun of anybody on this. I mean, that's not
at all. I've said all these things.
Same with me, right? Me too. And the whole point is grow. grow beyond it,
Absolutely.
right? Get better. And you and I have failed in these things, and so we hope that we get better, and we're going to fail in plenty of other things. We hope we continue to get better.
Good word, Coach. Good talking to you.
Yeah, good talking to you. And Fluffy, what's your
Phoebe?
She looks
toy
like
poodle. I think that's as big as she's going to get. So.
She's the same color. She looks like my son and daughter-in-law's little dog, which is a golden doodle. Like she's the same color as Slugger, my golden doodle.
Yeah,
but theirs is a toy. The toy size.
Is she a 12th of the size of Slugger?
Yeah, he's a big one.
It's been interesting. I've always said I wouldn't have a dog in the house. Interesting, that story. But I do like having her around. I can't lie.
Cool. Yeah, they're nice companions.
All right, Coach.
Yep.
Talk to you soon.
All righty.
Thanks, everyone.